We are massively distracted. Our minds are on overdrive. And sometimes we need a break. This weekend, I heard 3 strategies I'm going to put in place to see if they can help me get to where I want to go. So let's talk about them.
My goal is to help restaurant owners finally get to where they want to go. But more than that, my goal is to find entrepreneurs within that segment that actually know what it means to hustle. That's my goal. Come on the journey with me.
Restaurant Marketing Secrets, episode 716. I'm your host, Matt Plapp, and today we're talking about what sounded like a rap lyric for a podcast. When I listened to the intro, I was like, man, I felt like I was writing something for Eminem. We're talking about 3 strategies to rest your mind, though. We're not talking about rapping. This weekend, driving to and from the National Buffalo Wing Festival, I had plenty of freeway time. A lot of podcasts playing in the background and thinking about where I'm at and where I want to go, but more importantly, how I'm going to get there. Like you, I have big dreams. I have ideas that are way out in front of a lot of people, but I've got to figure out not only how to harness them, but how to harness myself. And 3 ideas were presented to me, 2 of which I absolutely love, and the third one I like a lot, but I got to figure out the logistics of doing it and how the hell I would do it personally. Number 1 is very simple, and it's something I'm already kind of doing in one part of my life. This was on the My First Million podcast, and they talked about the kale phone, K-A-L-E. I'm guessing maybe it's called kale because of the vegetable. I don't know. But the kale phone, the idea behind the guy who brought it up was that he had 2 phones. And 1 week, every month I believe was the cadence, he would use the kale phone. He had 2 identical iPhones. The one iPhone had all of his stuff on it for his career, his life, social media, email, Slack, texting, all of that. The Kale phone only had his platform he would listen to podcasts on. It had his notes inside of it. And the only people that had the phone number were people that would need him in case of emergency, his parents and his wife. So for me, that would be my parents, my wife, my kids. Nobody else had the number. They couldn't call him. They couldn't text him. They couldn't email him. He was radio silent for that period whenever he used the Kale phone. And he did this to give his brain a way to slow down, to give himself not only a detox from social media, but his brain a slowdown from that constant adrenaline hit, that dopamine hit of when you open up all your apps and you got 100 things coming at you. So the Kale phone's number 1, and where I've kind of got that in my life now, and I'll say this kinda in a very little area, is when I go to bed now. I have a secondary iPhone because I like the iPhone alarm sound, and I've got my exact alarm at the exact level so I don't wake Christy up. But I've got a phone in my bedroom that has nothing on it outside of the alarm. Everything has been deleted. There's no internet connection. The SIM card doesn't exist. So it is in essence, a very expensive alarm clock. I did that because I was getting into a habit of going to bed every night and looking at my damn phone. And as you know, that can be a very slippery slope. And it got to a slippery slope for me where I'm laying in bed for a half hour to an hour, aimlessly roaming around on things, trying to find some way to entertain myself or some way to stimulate my brain. And my excuse of why I had the phone in there was I had my alarm clock on it. Well, that's gone. So now maybe I can figure out a way to take that phone or a version of it and have my own Kale phone and be able to get away from everything else. Number 2 comes to me from John Cena, the entertainer, wrestler, movie star, whatever you want to call him. He said occasionally, and he had just got done doing this at the time of this interview, he will hop in his car and go on a road trip with nothing. So in this instance, he got in one of his cars. I believe he said he left Tampa, is where he lives. And he drove for 18 hours, his phone and a backpack in the back seat, stopped at 4 coffee shops in 18 hours. No music, no podcasts, no talking to anybody, except at the coffee shops, he would talk to the people there. That was his only interaction because he said he loves local coffee shops and he loved talking to the people in there, just having conversations. But he said that windshield time over the course of that almost one day, 18 hours, really gave him a lot of clarity and freed up his mind, but also let him think about stuff at a deeper level. And the third one, which is a lot more extreme from a standpoint of what we all are accustomed to, but a combination of maybe John Cena's and a work sprint, is by a company called Element. It's LMNT. It's a drink we actually sell at CrossFit The Tracks, the gym I belong to and used to own. The idea behind it, what does he call this? He calls it the 3-to-1 work structure. In the article, which I'll link on my blog, day 146 of The Puzzle at mattplapp.com, he talks about how our work schedule is a product of the Industrial Revolution. The 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, you're at the factory, you leave the factory, you go to life. Well, that doesn't happen nowadays. Our brains don't turn off. A lot of times our laptops don't turn off. We are on the go the entire time. And so the idea behind the 3-to-1 is 3-week sprints, 1 week off. And I haven't gotten done reading all of the documentation on it yet to understand everything about it. But in the essence, it is you figure out a goal. I want to accomplish this now until this time 3 weeks away. It's a big, hairy task. It's something we're doing for our company. And then at the end of that 3 weeks, you take 2 to 3 days to decompress. And then you take another 3 to 4 days of off time. There's no emails unless it's an emergency. There's no meetings. There's no phone calls. There's some free time on your own, a little work, but it's more or less you're not working in on a project. And then you start over on another one. And during that time off, you're also identifying what the next 3-week sprint's going to be. And the idea I can really relate to, because within our business, especially as we are building Driver and we are constantly in startup mode with the ABR Roadshow and America's Best Restaurants, we have multiple startups running at one time. And yes, these are established businesses that have been around for a while, but we almost have products within them that are startups. And so there's these massive needs to make quick strides in what we're doing to get to the next step. And so I can see where multiple 3-week sprints would help, especially with Driver, as we evolve that software to become the only software of its type in the restaurant space. I could see we're having 3-week victories to get a micro win across the finish line would help us get to our quarterly win, which would help us get to a massive win every single year. But more importantly, I could see where it would help with winning of our minds. Because if you've got it on all the time, you crash and burn. And that happens to me every few months where I hit a wall. In 2 or 3 days, I take a reset and then I get back at it. One of the examples they use in this 3-to-1 concept is comparing a cow to a lion. That a cow just grazes all day, every day in the fields for its food. A lion hunts and then digests and then rests and then stalks and then hunts and does its thing. This is more of the lion versus the cow because it's not hard to get stuck in a routine of working on these projects and letting them drag out for a long, extended period of time. Now, we in our company use a product called EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, that allows us to run in 3-month sprints. But I think this could be dangerous if combined correctly with that exact thing. So those are 3 ideas: the Kale phone, the John Cena drive, we'll call it, and then the 3-to-1 work, rest, sprint. That's all I got. Talk to you tomorrow.